Hello and welcome to the Coach's Journey podcast. Today we have the marvellous Alex Whitton and Robbie Swale with us. And I'm Ruth, your host, who is, why am I talking about myself in the third person? I am very tired because it was hotter than the sun last night, so I didn't get much sleep. So just before we hit record, we did actually discuss whether or not I was going to chair this meeting, chair the recording. But we decided that we're going to go with it in true Coach's Journey fashion. So this episode is about what to do when the business of coaching feels hard, which I'm sure you will all know does happen from time to time. So as a quick intro, oh no, I tell you what, because I've got Alex and Robbie looking at me, I will let them say hello and laugh about my tired introduction. Alex, welcome to our group chat.
Yeah, hi Ruth. Yeah, good to be here. I smiled as well because I thought, we talk about what if it like, when it feels hard, which, yeah, there might be some people that it's not yet felt hard for. So maybe tuck this away or, yeah, if it never feels hard, like, please come on the show. But
Yes.
yeah, I think that's probably a fair assumption that at some point it will feel hard.
Yeah, but if your coaching business has never felt hard, definitely email us because we want you on the show.
Yeah, it's like I got to say, when you said the idea, even the idea of that, Alex, that someone might have a business that hasn't felt hard, I felt like a little uncomfortable. And I was like a little like envious and yeah, like in some ways I'm like, yeah, come on the show. In other ways I'm like, I don't want you kind of inhuman creature on the show. You'll show us all up. But yeah, hey everybody, and it's great to be here and yeah, glad that you're here when it's feeling a bit hard for you, Ruth. And also, like, I was just thinking as you handed over to us then, I wonder, it's those difficult things, isn't it? And this is like a great thing that I think about with clients. Because clients will always say, how are you, Robbie? At some point in the first 5 minutes of a call. And you have there's real decisions to make about how you answer that, especially when things are feeling hard. And for example, if you hadn't mentioned, maybe later on we'll be able to make a joke now if your mouth and brain can't quite connect quickly enough. But I wonder if anyone would have noticed. That's one of the things that it's always, well, it's almost always less noticeable from the outside, isn't it? When we're struggling, which is both a good thing and a bit of a problem sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of goes back to that thing that I always go back to, that you're better than a lamppost, even if you're a tired lamppost.
Yeah, but sometimes I've had this a couple of times. If being the lamppost, like if there's something serious going on in your life and someone says, how are you? And you tell them, there is the risk at that point that the conversation gets a bit derailed. I've had that a few times with clients over the years. And it's all interesting, but it is like the lamppost at that point. It's why we think about being clean in coaching, I guess, because why they have that whole movement of clean language, because it does mean that you're sure you're better than a lamppost. And when
Yeah.
you start putting yourself in, it's really interesting. It's only happened a couple of times, but it has happened. And you get a slightly weird dynamic sometimes because people don't really know what to do if you tell them the real truth about what's going on in your life sometimes.
Yeah. What I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of put a pin in that because I feel like um, that could lead us down a very interesting avenue. Um, but we are on a mission to create a short episode, which we are not famous for here at the Coach's Journey.
Just short for us, though, is anything under
Yeah.
1 hour 48. So we're all good, I think.
So, and I do want to go back to that, but what I wanted to start with was Alex's idea, but due to the tiredness and the heat, I can't quite articulate it as well as he's going to do. So I think let's start with Alex's idea, but I definitely want to come back to how do we coach when we're maybe not in the best possible. Go on.
Well, I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt. This is like what happens when you try and have me not sharing a call on this show, obviously. Like, I wanted to hear a bit first, Ruth, about like what, because I think it's really important. Like, what was it that means that we're here doing an episode about it feeling hard? I don't know if you feel like you can answer that. I can have a
Okay.
go, but I think the impetus for this episode, right, it was an idea that I think came from one or both of you. You originally, was it Ruth? And then I remember Alex bouncing it around with me at one point, and then now we're back to it, doing it again now. Like, what is it that feels important about this?
Okay. Yeah, nice. Thanks, Robbie. That's a good place to start. So I can remember quite clearly I was sat in my car waiting for the AA man to come because it had broken down. And we have a coaches journey WhatsApp group where we all send in our like check-ins before we have a meeting. And because I had been blessed with the time of waiting for a breakdown to arrive, I thought I'll catch up on my coach's journey stuff. Um, and I'd just come to the end of a period of it feeling really hard. And I really felt like I was coming out of that. Um, so it was top of mind. And I think, Robbie, you'd asked for ideas for, extra episodes or group episodes. So that's where it came from. And that was back in, I think, March. Um, and I can honestly say that since then, I've probably felt it's been hard lots of times again, and then come back up lots of times again. Now that might say something more about me as a person, um, but it certainly still feels very relevant and something that comes up when I speak to coaches, when I work with coaches. So it just felt like a really valuable episode for us to get together, really. Does that answer it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, and I guess for some people it might be shorter periods of feeling hard and longer periods of it feeling easy or the other way round. Um, but I am 5 years in now. And there doesn't seem to be any sort of rhythm. But certainly since March, I couldn't tell you how many times I've gone up and down from it feeling hard to it feeling the best thing.
Yeah, I think I've said this to you two both before, but I probably said it on the show, but I'm 10 years in, and I think there's been a time, at least once in every year, except I think it was 2022, maybe it was 2023. Every year apart from that, there's been at least once where I've thought, I've got to get out of this. I've got to get a job.
Yeah.
This is absurd. I can't do it anymore. And I haven't yet. But it doesn't mean I won't. I think the last time I was in it, I was like probably in some ways the closest because it was the least painful. It was the most like, actually, I've done a decade. If I decided to call it a day now, that would be okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not there now, and I'm still here. But I think it is. I personally, actually, this is slightly because we were talking about it before. If somebody hasn't felt it's hard, I would actually really question what they're doing. I think there is if your business, for me, that means there's no growth for them going on in their business, no personal or professional growth,
Mm,
because growth has some parts that feel hard, and so it's like we'll get more to it later, but probably, but yeah, I think it's a really important thing. And I remember thinking or saying at some point that really we should do one of these every time one of the host team is finding it hard.
I'd
You
be
know, it's
constantly on.
yeah, maybe it'd be too many episodes. Maybe we could have a monthly segment. Whichever one of the what is it, six of us is finding it hard that month. Alex, is there anything you want to add in before we?
Yeah, and maybe the questions come back to, but one is on that point of difficulty, and it like in some ways, what's difficulty a sign of?
Mhm.
But the questions come back to perhaps with you, Robbie, is um, if almost every year, you thought maybe I should call this a day. What is it that means that you're still here? And in the same way, like Ruth, I know you've run businesses before running your own coaching business, and like how does that compare? Because I think there's something unique about running a coaching business, but often I feel like what makes it easier when it feels hard, and obviously we'll get onto this a lot more, is talking to other people that run businesses that aren't coaching. Um, and that's like for me personally. So yeah, there are two thoughts that stand out that I think we can touch on now or perhaps come back to.
They're awesome, Alex. Really, both of those really good. And I'm kind of smiling because you mentioned the business I ran before I ran a coaching business. And I don't think I've reflected on this before, but I'd say it was probably very similar. This is hard. This is hard. No, it's not. This is great. This is easy. This is brilliant. This is my zone of genius. Oh my God, no, this is awful. I need to get out. Back down. So I think that definitely says something about me possibly being a bit too reactive. But what I do know and what is the common thing between the business I used to run and the business I run now, and probably a factor in the up and down nature, is that it is full of love. You know, both those businesses were run with love, are run, one of them, you know, and that's a big deal, isn't it?
Um, Two things stand up there, Ruth, is as you said that I made the connection that before running a coaching business, I also ran a business that had never considered how transferable that experience is, which like I think, I mean, if there's a takeaway straight away, it's maybe that it's like, what are all the things that we've done? It doesn't have to be running business that have felt really difficult, but actually we've got through because like ultimately, like it's that the thing isn't the thing, is it? So it's like the context might be the coaching business, but it's probably not. That's just the arena in which there's the difficulty. And probably the nature of what it is means that that might be more present more regularly. And like when you like love is an amazing thing, it doesn't always feel easy either. It makes me think of the uh, um, like I really enjoy an evening on the sofa watching TV, but I know that if I do that too many evenings in a row, there's something that feels like lacking. But it feels more effortful to think of something else to do that's probably more fulfilling. And I think there's that element as well, isn't there? Of like in life, there's always a threshold we might have to cross to get like the a certain amount of fulfillment, and that in itself can be difficult too. So, and it's not saying that we always have to do that, but bearing that in mind and it being present in more than just the coaching business sphere as well. But, like, probably shared experiences can come across there.
Yeah, really nice. Thanks, Alex. And that's kind of got another the cup you've brought up a couple of things that I want to kind of put pins in for later. Um, but I am still determined for us to talk about times that it has felt hard. I've got my finger out. You can't see this because you won't watch the video, guys. But yeah, I'm pointing my finger, which my mum tells me not to do. Um, so Alex, you suggested the idea that we complete the sentence. What? I can't remember.
It's like I'm actually having to look at my notes, so I can't remember either. But when building a business feels too hard. When
Okay, awesome. So I think, yeah, let's just kind of go around doing that. Well, let's all just three of us have a go at answering that and see where we get. Yeah?
I've also written some down in advance, so if I get bingo, I will shout bingo because that would be
Yes.
very funny.
I'd love that. Okay, then. Well, you start, Alex, with your bingo card.
But building a business feels too hard when you've got a no from prospective client or a no show or just too many reschedules.
Okay.
That's a really good one. I'll go. Building a business feels too hard when the financial pressure gets high on like the rest of my life.
Yeah. Building a business feels too hard when you doubt yourself.
Yeah. Building a business feels too hard when you're looking at everyone else's LinkedIn.
Such a good one. I was going to say that. But for me, it's not building a business feels too hard. It's not everyone else's LinkedIn. There's this like subset of people. I'll tell you what I've started doing. How do I get through that? I've started hiding them.
Yep.
So I'm not going to say who they are on this public forum, but I can tell you later. But I've started hiding people because I like them, but just seeing their LinkedIn just makes it too hard,
Yeah.
makes it feel too hard.
Yeah, the hide button is a marvelous invention.
So good.
So
So
that
good.
is my first takeaway for our listeners is get happy with your hide button on LinkedIn. Okay, we're keeping going. I'm kind of making
Let's
notes of
yeah,
them.
let's do a few more. I think it feels
Okay.
it's to me it's funny. Like I like it's
Yeah.
like that great thing about where it's like you hear somebody else saying the thing that and it's such a
Yeah.
relief, isn't it?
Okay.
So hopefully listeners are feeling that as well.
Yeah. Um, keeping what I can't still can't remember the question. Building your coaching business feels hard when the people who care about you would much rather you had a steady job that they understood. You can't see, but I got lots of satisfied nods and smiles there.
Distant stares for is what you were hearing, listeners.
Building a business feels too hard when you're only talking to other coaches about how difficult it is.
Yeah.
Such a good one, Alex. I have had to just really remove that from my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Carry
Yeah.
on.
Uh, Building a business, coaching business feels too hard when you start to doubt the the tactics that you're using,
Mm.
or you're always questioning the tactics you're using.
Ooh. Okay. Building a coaching business is hard when, see, I knew there'd be a really long break at some point. I'm editing this and I'm going to take that out.
Leave this bit in though, so that listeners are like, wait, there wasn't. Oh yeah, I see.
Ah,
Just
yeah,
taking it out. Yeah. No, you can say that. It's
yeah.
perfect.
I don't know if I'm starting to repeat myself, so you carry on if you've got more, Alex.
Sure. Building a business feels like too hard when everything else, like in your life, feels thrown up in the air or unclear.
Yeah.
Actually, why do you think we'd slow down on that as well? Like, I think I want to be really clear on like the distinction between building a business and doing coaching. And I think we'll probably get onto that, but they can feel very different. And one can feel really difficult while the other one feels like the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, going back a bit to spending time with other coaches, building a business feels too hard when you forget the progress you've made. So,
Mm.
like, if you only hang out with coaches who are about the same stage in the business as you or further ahead, then it can start to feel impossible to me. And then you have to, every now and again, you have to hang out with some newbies, and it's like, oh, what a relief. I've moved. Might have been 10 years, but I've definitely moved.
Building a coaching business feels too hard when you start to question the value of coaching.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
really didn't want to say that one. I
Yeah,
thought
no, well done for saying it.
I was gonna be like shot down in flames,
Oh.
but I did get smiles of recognition.
Yeah, think about it like this. If you had complete faith in the power of coaching, it would feel way easier, wouldn't it? And yet I can't do that. Or I don't, even 10 years in, I don't do that.
Mm.
Yeah. Building a business feels too hard when you're really busy, but none of the things you're busy with feel quite in alignment with the stuff you like, really love to do.
So, wow, we're really in alignment. I was going to say alignment in my answer. Like, yeah, when or maybe a different way of saying it is like when building a business feels too hard, when you, you're when I'm compromising who I am
Mm.
in like service speech marks of the business.
Well, unless either of you have got any like burning other ones, I think like let's double click on some of those.
Plan one more, Ruth.
You can, Alex, you and your bingo card.
Yeah, just to get it to complete. Well, I think actually to come up, one is building a business feels too hard when well, either we've just not done much coaching, or
Yeah.
don't have much coaching on the horizon, and there's that like, where on earth is it going to come from? And it can feel too hard as well when we see people who have, I think, in speech marks started more recently, much further than we are.
Oh God, yeah.
There's a
Oh,
whole in my book that's going to come out this year. There's a new book coming out this year. You may have hearing it here first on for my coach's journey, for all we know. But there's a whole chapter about a story about that. Actually, like I just like absolutely lost it. Early days, first couple of years, like a couple of weeks at least of essentially inaction from that exact situation. It's like it's cruel, isn't it?
what from seeing someone who started before after
Yeah, just
you?
yeah, like someone speech marks newer, doing speech marks better. For so we're like and like the chapter is about like, well, what is going on with in a human when you get so lost in something with so many assumptions.
Mm.
But yeah, it's really hard at those times. Like or like I get with money as well. You kind of get this whisper from somebody, but of course, people are really like the coaching industry is really bad for kind of like money implications. Like you kind of get this. Oh, I've had a I'm getting into 5-figure months. It's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? 5 figures of what? When? How? What is five? Like, are you saying you made £99,999 this month, or are you saying you made 10,001 in proposals you sent out? Like, we've got no idea what it means. Anyway, but you get that kind of thing, and it's like, oh, I get a lot of like, oh man, I can't believe I'm 10 years in, and this is all the money I'm making. And to avoid doing the thing that I've just said. So the last few years, last year was a bit less, but my last few years, my profit on my business, this is why it gets tricky, right? Because
Yeah.
profit on the business doesn't include that I'm charging stuff against it for my house, which I wouldn't be if I was getting a salary because I work from home and all those kinds of things. It's been about 50 grand. And then I'll be like, I can't believe I'm only making this much money after 10 years. And then if I'm in good enough shape, I'll be like, I can't believe I get paid this much money to do this little work that I love. So
Yeah.
but if I get that flash of, so building a business feels too hard when I'm in comparison about money, about success. And the other one that I've got is building a business feels too hard when I'm like my system, my internal personal system is in a mess. So it's like if everything is feeling hard, then the business is feeling hard. If
Yeah.
I'm under resourced and feeling under threat, then whether that's over a period of weeks or months, or whether it's like a day, being triggered into something, at that point the business feels too hard.
Mm.
Makes me think on that one. It's like this will sound really obvious, but I mean, we should probably link to your subject object blog on this, Robbie. But it's like feeling it can feel too hard when we forget that it can be difficult. Because we're like feeling it without being able to name the feeling of, oh, this is just like, it's hard. And like, well, at least for me, like I'll go about things forgetting that I either find them difficult or I know like trying new things unaware that obviously it's probably going to be more difficult. And being unaware of that and struggling with it feels much harder than when I notice, oh, this is hard. And I'm doing a hard thing.
Yeah, it's a little meta, and I know we're bridging now, but because Alex, you used the word threshold earlier, and now you're talking about that. Like one of the things that helps me when things get hard is remembering the hero's journey. And so, for those who don't know, really high level, the hero's journey is like probably what would we call it? I like to call it like the oldest framework that humans ever created, and it's basically the pattern of all our myths. And a part of all those myths is it being hard. Like, there is no story about a character really worth reading that doesn't have a really hard time for the character. And the thing that the hero's journey is about really is, how do people transform? And so if we are growing, there is like, you can't avoid it. Brene Brown says about, so she runs her Daring Greatly workshops based on the hero's journey. And she says, you can't skip day 2. Day 2 is the bit where it feels really, but you can't skip it. Like, if you want the transformation, you can't skip it. And the reminder that you can't skip it if you want to grow, and that it doesn't last forever. Those are two, I think, like, they don't make it necessarily easier, but they might make it feel a little bit more worthwhile. It's like, okay, yeah, on the other side of this, I'll be someone new, and that's good.
And having a sense of what the difficulty is, it's like, am I like summiting the mountain, or am I riding out like a very big storm? And being able to get the sense of them probably means it's like, well, because I'll probably approach both of those quite differently. I learned to sail first, for the latter, but like, yeah, like one is going to take longer than the other.
I just like, for anyone who hasn't been on too many calls with Alex or listened to too many of his episodes, it's absolutely classic that he just put in two analogies there. The analogy king of the coach's journey. Imagine being Alex's client and just like how your consciousness would get transformed by the different metaphors and visuals that you're taking into. Hi everybody, just a quick thing before we get back to the show. If you like what you're hearing on this episode, the chances are you'll love An Introduction to the Coaching Business Flywheel, a free ebook available at thecoachesjourney.com. It's the most important piece of content I've ever created for coaches, boiling down everything I've learned from this show, from working with master coaches, and from my own experience into one simple model. The model not only tells you the only things you have to do to have a sustainable coaching business, but also shows you how they can form a virtuous circle that keeps your coaching business growing. It's all free, and you can find it at thecoachesjourney.com. There's a link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
So, what are we double clicking on?
For me, it feels like we've done a really good job, haven't we, of outlining the kind of mess and net of things that make this feel hard and horrible some of the time. Should we get to like, what do we do about it? That's what I've like, amongst my notes and thinking for this episode, that's what I've kind of is feeling most pregnant in me. But is there something that there could be like particular topics that we could go to as well? Like, I think the great thing about having the three of us here is we get to like feel into it together.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I've made very sporadic and not particularly articulate notes. So maybe let's kind of go through the ones that I've made notes on and how we deal with those. And then and I will have missed things, and then kind of come back and see where we are. So Alex is like how to feel when you have a lot of no-shows or reschedules or cancellations, was it? How do you deal with it, Alex? Just putting it back up, yeah.
I'm going to cry into your pillow. What else other than crying into your pillow, what do you do?
So my default is probably not always the best. It's often like well, actually, it's depending how I'm feeling. Sometimes there are times where it's like, oh, actually, this is slightly useful having this hour back. But actually, I think that more and more I want to catch how I feel in those moments, because there's times when I'm like, oh my gosh, this business is going to collapse. And then you get into this really reactive, like, how on earth are people going to hear about it? And that's unhelpful for everyone. But at the same time, there is like I notice in those moments, if I sit with it long enough, I start coming up with some like quite cool ideas, which I think touched on, is it your most like read article, Robbie, came from a client no-show. And I think there's almost this like, is this an opportunity to do something creative with this time that I've been given that I'd not planned to have? And sometimes the answer might be no, and I just need to write some emails, because actually it will give me a bit of time later and I can feel rested and recharged. Sometimes it can be, like, oh, what could I create from this? Other kind of, I suppose, the two angles that I sometimes take from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Alex. That it was the how I became the spark that became the coach's journey came because I had was dealing with this thing that we're talking about, and what came out of my coaching or my thinking about it was, okay, if I get a cancellation, it's like I'm feeling so under threat from that. I'm feeling like my whole identity
Mm.
is under threat because of this cancellation, because I'm in that thinking you're talking about, the kind of catastrophizing of the whole business is going to collapse, this will never work. And I decided that I needed to go further than neutral from it. And I like this as a way of thinking, like, okay, so a thing that I don't want to have happen, how can I attach to that not just a neutral thing as if it hadn't happened, but a treat, basically. So my treat was if I get a cancellation, I do something cool. That was my frame at that time. And that was one day I decided to sit down and write an article idea that I had for a while about my journey into coaching, and we'll put links to it in the show notes. We've just released it as an episode 100, so you can listen to it as well. And that's where that came from. And that I think is a really important way of looking at this challenge. What is interesting about it, and it used to happen all the time to me, it just doesn't really happen anymore. And I think there's a couple of reasons for this. One is you kind of get a bit past it because the referral thing just becomes a little bit more secure. But without wanting to go too heavy on sales of digital products, I think part of it is because of how I treat people in the build up to calls. It's and around the coaching itself. And so people can buy, the reason I'm saying digital products, people can buy a thing called the Coaching Business Flywheel Booster Pack, which has the literal emails I send. And I don't know which bits of what create it, but it
Mm.
just doesn't happen as much anymore. And so I think there is a way to get through that that is also tactical, which is like give yourself a bit more respect, and other people, I think, give a bit more respect. And I think it goes down to things like how do you talk about those sessions that you're having? How many offers of like dates do you make to people? If you say, I think you get more cancellations if you say, I can meet you anytime next week, than you do if you say, I can meet you Tuesday at 2 or Friday at 4. And as soon as you say that, the whole dynamic is a bit different, and people cancel less. But like hearing you and just remembering the feeling of those cancellations, there is a thing like the good thing to tell to everybody who's had that, from my experience, is you do get through that, right? Because you just like, in the end, you just learn my value as a human does not depend on whether this person shows up. But that's what it feels like some of the time. And I can't remember the last time I felt like that, which is a lovely thing to remember.
Yeah, and I think to jump on that, it's like two things I've noticed is I can very, very vividly remember the cancellation that comes to mind quite early on, where he was just like, oh, like attaching, well, clearly I'm not good enough if they just can't bother to show up. But actually it was a diary issue they had. And like through some of the work I do in prison now, like cancellations are really common and completely out of anyone's control. And there's been a really lovely reminder actually of like it's almost always never about you. And and like how do you respond to that? And in the same way, to your point, Toby, of like if you're, for want of better words, simplifying it's like if you're assertive in how you communicate to start with and like clearly boundary, then actually that I suppose is like a positive filtering thing as well, because it suggests that if they then don't get back to you or don't show up to the call, then maybe it's for the best for them and for you right now in that moment, and that is, I think, totally fine. And again, it's that detachment, isn't it? It's not necessarily saying anything about you or even anything about them. It's the state in which everything is in that moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are you noticing, Ruth?
Oh, loads. It's really good. Um, I think it was really good for me to notice that that happens less and less now for me too, 5 years down the line. Which, is a good way to make myself feel better. Um, but also I think earlier on in your career, you are more likely to be offering pro bono sessions or low cost sessions. And I think people are more likely not to show up to those. And people are more likely to show up to a session that they've paid the correct amount of money for in advance.
And also, it doesn't feel as bad if you still get paid. I've noticed that for
Really
myself.
doesn't
I
feel
don't
as
seem to
bad.
mind so much if I'm getting
I've
paid,
been paid.
100 quid or something to write an article
Yeah.
or have a cup of tea.
Yeah. Or, and this is what I wrote down as my answer to how we deal with cancellations and no shows is go for a nap. But maybe that says a lot about me and a lot about like Robbie.
What
Robbie
about
had
you in this
decided,
moment?
yeah, me in
Yeah.
this moment for sure. Robbie decided with a no-show to do something cool. Ruth decided with a no-show to go for a nap.
Yeah. Both important things to do in life.
Yeah.
And
And
like as a little aside, like depending on what we double click on later, like doubling down on looking after myself is one of the things I do when things go hard.
Mm.
So like
yeah,
napping if things feel hard is like a really good move.
yeah,
Some of the times
yeah.
when things feel hard, we're too thirsty, or too tired, or too hungry, or whatever
Or
it might
too
be.
cooped up in the office and you need to go out for a walk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Let's double click on self-care a bit later. But also, and you sort of mentioned it, Alex. I think it's a good time with that cancellation to kind of consider what that might mean in relation to the client or in relation to your practice. Like without, like we're here to talk to hopefully offer support to coaches who are finding things hard. And obviously the last thing you want to do is go down a negative rabbit hole. But I think sometimes you get a cancellation or a no-show and you're not surprised because you kind of knew that that's where the client was anyway. Or so I think it is a good time for reflection, basically.
I think it's always worth asking, what could I do next time to make this a bit
Yeah.
less likely? Like, don't take too much responsibility for it, right? Don't be like we're kind of saying, I definitely have done plenty of times of like, oh man, this all this shows is that I'm a terrible human and an awful coach, and I should just quit life, let alone coaching. And that's the thing I take, which is too much responsibility and obviously a bit insane. Um, but don't take too little. Like there usually is. I think that's one of the things. There are things that can and will change. So there's always learning. And again, a good thing to do with situations like this is reflect with other people. We've kind of touched on that already. Whether that's your coach or your supervisor or a friend, it's like, oh yeah, what is it like when do you get this thing where people cancel? And what did you do about it? And or what can I do about this? Because there is
Yeah.
lots of learning. It's like the early stages of a coaching business. I think if you use them, you can learn a lot about how to run a business and how to run your business, how you want to run your business pretty fast. Because all this stuff about you shows up, you can't do anything about it, and you can learn from it.
Yeah. Are we good to move on?
Yeah.
So I think, and this is kind of more of a theme. So this came out in lots of our It Feels Hard Wens. And I think the main theme is comparison, whether that is LinkedIn, whether it is for me, well, Robbie was here when he'd been 5 years in, and I'm not there. That is a real comparison I have made for myself. Um, money, earnings, 5-figure month crap. Like, what what is the answer?
What have you got, Alex?
Compare or despair?
I can go, but I've got a whole book chapter that I can kind of regurgitate here, so we've got to be careful of that. Yeah, what are you noticing, Alex?
Yeah, I think you know, it's like it's a bit like envy, isn't it? Or uh like some of the negative emotions, like we call them negative, like envy or even fear or sense of inadequacy. I think I've written about that before, actually. Like, what might that be telling us? And it might be telling us nothing. But and it's like, is comparison telling us? Because almost always my comparison is like, oh, they're doing so much better than me, whereas like it's better in what way is unclear, and like actually potentially suggests, oh, maybe I do want more of this, or I could be more explicit about how much I'd like to earn, for example. And it's like, well, take then you can choose to take responsibility for that or not. Um, but like on the inverse, it's like that grace, isn't it? Of I've spoken to enough people running enough businesses where I'll go, you were doing this really cool thing I saw, and that's just one part that's going well when there's a lot of things that are still challenging. Like there's probably almost always going to be some level of challenge somewhere. I think there's always a human psychology bit to often we've got a bias to the negative stuff. So we'll be bringing that when we compare, but also when talking to others, they'll be bringing that even when it's going well. So yeah, it's like, in what way is comparison actually, again, an opportunity to reflect, I suppose, and like check yourself against your reality. It's like, what does this tell me about what I want and or like where I am? Um, so like an opportunity for grace as well. And then that final piece is as well of like, what are all the assumptions about what I'm seeing based on what as like the tip of an iceberg, really, I suppose.
Yeah, so good. So good. And I think it takes me back to like one of the ways I've dealt with all the hard times that I've been through in this business is go to my coaches, my mentors, like with the stuff. And if you take this this comparison stuff to a coach worth their salt, so in this example that's in this book, it was Joel Monk, who's we can link to the Joel episode of the coach's journey. And it was like I learned a lot. I learned about how I was the scarcity that was showing up. The idea that this other person's success had literally anything to do with my ability to be successful. I was making all these assumptions that like if he was doing well, I couldn't be doing well, which had just like no grounding in any part of reality. And so I think all that inquiry there, it's probably like a meta answer to loads of the stuff we're talking about. Is like, how can you shift into what can I learn from this hard time? Now, you don't always want to be in that, and it's obviously really annoying if somebody else says to you, "Oh yeah, I know it's hard that you're breaking up with this person, your heart's broken, but what can you learn from this?" It's like, don't want to have to click the explicit button, but I'd say to that person. So there's that part of it. If you can get into learning, and that probably also actually literally, I'm just thinking about what they call polyvagal theory. If you can shift into learning, that also means you're probably shifting your whole nervous system out of threat state and into what they call the social engagement state. So when you're able to be in learning, you kind of know you're coming out of the hard time, the nervous system hard time. So that I think is a great meta answer. The really tactical stuff that I would think about is, look, protect yourself from it. Like get out of the places. Like like these things that we do, it is fragile, especially early on, right? If you're a bit like your one, Ruth, which is so good about family members who want you to get a job, you just have to stop talking to them for a while until it's a little fragile, like plant inside you. And if you go into too many places without, with harsh weather conditions, it can die. And that's bad because this work is sacred work. And so we have to protect it. And that means hiding the people on LinkedIn for sure, going on those social media less. If you notice people who drain your energy massively when you talk about the coaching business, stop talking about it with those people. It's just like they're not what you need right now. And find the people who it is okay to talk about it with. Find the people because there are also people who could have the attributes, for me at least, to cause a comparison spiral, who for some reason don't. And so it's not, it's not as simple as everyone who makes more money than me makes me feel awful. There's like more, it's a bit like your thing with the ups and downs, Ruth. It's like, by me telling me something about me, right, who those people are. But so I think that is also, so protect yourself from it is one thing. And then there are two mindsets that I've come back to over and over again. One is from 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. He's obviously a controversial, well, not obviously, but for some people, he's a controversial character. But that book is absolute genius. It is the distillation of, 40 years of clinical psychology into incredible life lessons. And one of them is, compare yourself to you of yesterday not somebody else today. So like every time I slip into comparison for probably like 2 years, I would try and come back to that and be like, okay, yeah, but how am I doing compared to me before? And then you can start to notice the progress, and we get out of it. And the other one, the thing that emerged in the end from that story years ago, which is in the book, and I think there's like a little blog post about this somewhere, which I'll try and dig out, is that the other thing we often do when we're in comparison is we compete with other people based on the things they are best at, not based on the things that we are best at. And really, there's probably somebody else thinking about any of us. I mean, you've just said actually, Ruth, that you do this with me sometimes. So there we go, right? There's somebody else somewhere thinking the same thing about us, because from the outside we look different, and it's just a flawed comparison, and it's not useful. So in some ways, I think we have to like haul our mindset away from it and point it somewhere more useful.
Yeah. And on that note, I just grabbed my notes from Atomic Habits, the book by James Clear, which, because I've just been talking about it with a client, and it's sort of made me go back into it, and I enjoyed it, and I found it really useful. But his things for forming a habit are: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. So really, with this comparison stuff, it's doing the other, it's going the other way, like practically, as in hide it, don't make stuff obvious, don't make those people that cause that reaction in you, don't have them as being obvious. You know, if LinkedIn is the kind of pressure point, take the whole app off your phone, you know. So it's kind of doing the opposite is what I'm saying, of making it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. So make it hidden, painful, difficult, and no reward associated with it. Like, yeah, just physically, like you said, Robbie, removing yourself from those situations, removing yourself from those conversations. You're on mute, Robbie. Yes, I so thought that was going to be me today.
Yeah. And Ruth's editing as well, so if she can't edit, she probably won't edit that out.
Definitely
Maybe
won't
be
edit
like
that.
the show sneak peek at the beginning.
um, yeah, it's so good. I forgot what I was going to say now. It's so good, Ruth. I mean, like the kind of getting out of the spaces. Like I discovered this, you can sometimes get, if you want to be posting on LinkedIn, for example, you can sometimes do it via another app. I would do that with Twitter at one point. I would like post through TweetDeck so I didn't have to go into Twitter and therefore be exposed to the kind of horror show of Twitter at the same time. Like, because you can sometimes want to post without wanting to be in there. And just to make it really practical, because there is definitely a blog post which I'll link to, called "No One Can Compete with You at Being You." And in that, just for people, there's a really cool exercise that Phil Bolton, who was on the show years ago, a few times actually, wasn't he? He gave me and the people I trained with once, which was, so this is to remind yourself that you can be unique in the field of coaching as well. So it's like the game would be this. You might need help with this, people who are listening, but imagine there's 100 coaches in a room. Everyone puts their hand in the air and somebody at the front reads out statements about coaches that would be desirable to clients. And you keep your hand in the air if it's true, and you put your hand down if it's not. And the aim is to work out how many statements there could be about you that would get everybody else, get 99, the average 99 other coaches to have their hands down, and just you have your hands remaining. And that somewhere there's a link to that, which we'll put in the show notes. And then I started just reading that, you know, and then it was on my about page for a long time. It might still be there, some of it, I don't know. And because it's just like reminder that there is a list of, just like there's a list of qualities of that you're envious of in someone else, there's a list of qualities about you that would stand out to potential clients. And we just got to remind ourselves of that and kind of meditate on it. So every time our attention goes to all the other stuff, just bring it back to that.
I want that article, please.
Yep, I'll put it in the show notes. There's also a video series that me and my friend Nicole made. It's the first ever videos I made. So I look fresh-faced.
Baby Robbie.
We're a bit like Blue Peter presenters. We're channeling a bit too much Blue Peter presenter and not enough serious professional. But I'll put the link to those as well. It's called Mastering Your Personal Brand. And there's one bit in it that every time I share that exercise with, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, this is all fine, but that bit is really good, and it's the bit about this." So we'll find that.
I would like to tender an application to be eligible to earn a coach's journey badge, though, but like a blue piece.
Oh
We
my
should do it.
gosh.
Yeah. It's on our
Yes.
business plan is to have more merch, isn't there? So, but we could have a Blue Peter style badge that you get if you're a guest or if you do something cool. So, everybody, you heard it here
Oh,
first.
yes. And then you can have a green one if it's related to the environment.
Is that what they do on Blue Peter now?
That's what they did, yeah.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
just to double click on a couple of things that I found really insightful. One, that sense of you were talking, Robbie, that there are some people that almost don't trigger that comparison and others that do. And so obviously there's maybe a piece of like shadow work there to do. Like, and you did it in your intensive. It's like if I was 5% of some of those things that I find like really jangle me, then
Alex, when we did it in the intensive, I was using the people that we're talking about, the people that I hide on LinkedIn. I was doing the shadow work while you were all off doing that exercise. I was doing the shadow work on those people, the smug, self-centered, idiots. But like, if I could be 5% more smug, like I'd probably be happier and more successful.
and also just to there's to pick up on the atomic habits bit, like an exercise that I've done before, and you could just do it yourself, and I can link to a handout of it. It's like draw three circles and put yourself in the middle, and it's like, what am I doing? What's the impact of the people I'm surrounding myself in, and then what's the impact of the environment in terms of like what I really want to create in my business or in my life. And then which of those can we adapt? And obviously the ones close to us are probably easier to do, but it might highlight I shouldn't talk to that person, or you know what, it might really benefit me to pay a bit to go and work in a cafe once a week just to like get out of the like my like environment. So I'm happy to share that. But because it made me think as well when you talked about I can't remember exactly what you were saying, Robbie, in terms of like a plant and the conditions, but like ultimately in the same way we have everything we need in us to grow. And so yes, like we can kind of control the conditions, but sometimes we do just need to like recognize that we can find that all in ourselves and give us the space. Like I think like it's really easy, and I mean I suppose without going on a huge tangent, education systems and like environments we live in kind of tell us that all of the things we need to know are outside of us. And like, what can we do to find our own way from within? Because that's really how you're going to run like your business and how it's going to work for you and how you're then going to be the unique coach that you are. And I think, I mean, coaching from the inside out was like, I think the title of the episode Neil did with Julie Starr, and I remember that being really rich for kind of thinking about that. So, but I think when it comes to comparison, you could even play the game of like, what might a day in the life of that person I'm comparing myself to be, and how much would I love to do that? And if there are some bits that you would love to do, then great, like try and do them. But if there are bits that you'd really hate, then good, because you don't have to do them.
Yeah, and just on that, because I can't believe we've been in this conversation for like 10 minutes about comparison. I haven't remembered. We've got a Coach's Journey short with like an amazing bit of Jennifer Garvey-Berger talking about comparison. So we're not going to talk about that now because people can just go and listen to it. It's like 90 seconds, but we'll link to it in the show notes.
Yeah. This, so two things are going on. One is this is going to be longer than we originally thought, and perhaps we might need to do a second one separately because I don't want to rush stuff. And that was just on the second thing that we discussed. So I think we could slow down a bit, couldn't we? And then maybe do a second recording.
Yeah, and I think there's the opportunity also for listeners to tell us if you want, if you listen to this and there's a thing that we didn't mention about what is hard in the business that you're thinking about, to let us know and get a metaphorical coach's journey badge.
Yeah, but I don't think it will be metaphorical. I think I might stop making them.
Okay, you got a handmade Ruth Saville original artwork somehow connected to the coach's journey and attached to a pin that you can pin somewhere important if you send in some things that aren't that we haven't mentioned yet. No, I think you're right. I guess we probably should have thought of this before we started, shouldn't we? That this is pretty much the whole of the coach's journey, right? What we're trying to do here, which is like how the coach's journey really is about How do we stop people quitting coaching? And how do we help everybody do more coaching that matters? And the big part of that is, how does the business feel? And when does it feel too hard? And so we probably should have thought, we're not going to be able to answer the whole of that in like 38
45
minutes. Yeah.
minutes. Yeah, but also just something that came up for me when you two were chatting is, and really this just shows itself again and again when we are in the business of coaching, that, we need to take our own medicine. As far as I have sat here and said so many times to my clients, you have everything you need to be successful, but we're not very good at saying that to ourselves or remembering that.
And yeah, like to double down on that, the best time to plan for it to be difficult is when it doesn't feel difficult. And I was talking to a founder the other week who was talking about some people advise, if you're starting a business, to think, well, what would you do if you had half the runway and half the cash flow that you currently have? And you probably, if you do all of those things now, it's almost always going to be better for the business anyway, because you're probably going to be more prioritized. And the only thing to hold there is ensuring that your thinking isn't within the scarcity mindset of, well, I've got half the stuff, so I can only have half the ambition. But other than that, it's, just doing some of that planning. Not necessarily, I mean, it's the Eisenhower thing, isn't it? Planning is essential, plans are worthless. But giving yourself the space so that, it's like almost what's the break glass thing I can do when the emergency, it feels like there's an emergency.
Would that be a good question to kind of finish to do as the next part, Ruth? Or have you got something else that you want to kind of before we finish today? Or have you got something else you want to?
No, I think that would be good. So what's in the break glass thing?
Yeah, what do you do? Like when things are really tough, what is it that we haven't talked about? How do you press the break glass thing in the business?
Oh, okay.
And to what you were saying, Ruth, it's like, isn't the challenge, isn't it, answering the questions that we so often ask?
I mean, I can go. I have answers to this. If I guess I can answer my own question this time. I do. Obviously, when somebody was interviewing me and asked me, or Joey asked me the one of the questions. It's like Joey asked me a question that I'd prompted and asked many people many times, and it was very uncomfortable. So sometimes it's not the case. That's episode 99. If you're curious to hear me squirm, listeners. So yeah, look, the way I think about this now, and I is like always come back to, we can't control the outcomes in the business. It is out of our control. Whether people say yes to us, how much money we have coming in, we can't control it. This is a terrifying thing. I had this idea recently with one of my coaches / counselors, who's taking care of the things that I can't take care of? Like, who's in control of that? It's a terrifying question that no one's in control, or if you believe in other things, somebody is. But it's like, so what can we do in the complex thing where we can't control the outcomes? We can do the things that create the conditions for good things to happen. So that's my break glass, is double down on that, basically, I think in both ways. So it's like there's an old Zen quote, which people always attribute to Gandhi or Nelson Mandela, and they might have said them or something, but it's, it's like, or the Dalai Lama, I meditate for an hour a day, except when I'm busy, then I meditate for 2 hours a day, right? And it's like, I look after myself pretty well, except when I'm feeling awful and life is falling around my shoulders and all that kind of thing. And then I look after myself really well. And I don't know what my family think about the kind of the exercise routine or the personal space or the reading by myself or the things that I do kind of becoming more fixed in those times. But it's the way that I know to get through it. So self-care, going back to that, is the kind of, if I can't afford, if I feel like I can't afford to pay a coach in my business, I pay a coach, because it's like, that's how I know to get the support to get through these things and to not be trapped in scarcity. And in the business, these days, I am pretty set on what I think helps a coaching business, and it's in the coaching business flywheel. And so when things are tough, as they were, last year was probably my slowest year since the pandemic in terms of income. And I was like, good job I've written down in public what I think the foundations of a coaching business are and how it works, because I don't really have any choice but to do it now. And We could talk about how that worked and how it didn't, but I did, from doing a whole set of invitations, I did have more income coming in. From doing a whole set of connections and saying yes to connecting things and offering experiences, I did end up with more work this year. So my things are personally is to kind of control what I can about how I'm feeling, which is exercise, sleep, food. I tend to, especially in the kind of pressure cooker of the last 2 years where we've had like cancer on both sides of the family. We've had like new baby, we've had moving house. It's been like, I basically stopped drinking at all for months pretty much because it was just like I couldn't cope with, no, this is partly me, right? But like I couldn't cope with knowing that part of why I was foggy and anxious was my self-inflicted. Like I want to like remove all of that feeling so that I can be a bit more trusting that, oh, this is just life right now. And then in the business, connect with more people, offer more people opportunities to experience me more, make more proposals. Um, yeah. So those are really I think those are my break glass moves.
Yeah.
And just to catch it, because Joey was going to come on this show, wasn't she? And didn't, it couldn't in the end, this episode. And she sent a really nice piece before this, which was basically just to completely paraphrase and kind of bottom line it. The good thing about when you're finding it hard, a good thing about the move being offer people opportunities to experience your coaching more is that you probably end up doing more coaching. The good thing about coaching is for almost all coaches, it's a thing that is kind of good for us. So we come out of those sessions, certainly true for me, sounds like it's true for Joey, true for you guys, but from the nods, like you come out of them feeling better. So like what a blessing that the work we do tends to be good for us.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I've said it on coaches journey calls when we've had meetings or whatever, action begets action. So for me, when it becomes really hard, I just have to do something. Um, Whatever that is, whether it's pick the phone to somebody who I know will be useful or send one invitation, um, post on LinkedIn, anything, because quite often it breaks that inertia and kind of gets you out of your own head. Um, but yeah, that being said as well, absolutely self-care. And as Alex and Robbie know, I've been looking into three principles in the work of Sydney Banks quite a lot. And what I find most helpful with that is that, just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. And so related to that, for me, is meditation. And if so, meditation obviously helps because you're detaching from your thinking. But on the flip side, when I am feeling better, I meditate less. So it's like when I feel good, that is when I have to double down and meditate more. Does that make sense? Like, because they're the days that it's easy to skip it because I'm not as um caught up in my thinking.
It's so good. Like it reminds me that somebody said to me that a kind of some kind of business adage being, if you've got a cash flow problem today, it's a problem with your action 90 days ago, right? So it's like in the good times, like it's all very well doubling down on the coaching business flywheel when things are going badly, but really the crucial move is to be doing it steadily. Some one of the subscribers asked me a question. There's an article about it on the coach's journey now. Like, how do I get a steady stream of clients that align with me? It's like, well, the bit about steady stream of clients is you need to steadily say to people, this is how much it costs and how you work with me. And if you do that enough, which is part of the coaching business flywheel, then you'll have a steady stream of clients. But you have to be doing that and always in it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The same thing. We have to look after ourselves when things are going well, because that will insulate us somewhat from the tough times. Like, like you say, can we practice noticing that it's thoughts when our life doesn't feel like it depends on it, because that's a really hard time to notice. Oh, yeah, it's just a thought, you know.
Yeah, but also maybe it's something about when life is feeling good, you're believing those
Mm.
good thoughts as well. And it's
Nice, yeah.
and obviously for me, as we have discovered, um, life I can be quite reactive. So actually it's not always helpful to react to those good thoughts because that can create more of a roller coaster and more of a high highs and low lows, I think.
Two things to quickly jump in and add. One for me is perspective. Like when we're in a moment where it feels really difficult, like it's almost that sense of like, well, what really matters? Like when I'm 80, how do I want to look back on this? Because that'll probably, if it's difficult because it's scary, you probably go, well, I want to have known that, I've like still had a go and let into it. But also, well, I've probably not wanted to compromise who I am to the people that really matter. And so, yeah, perspective is often zooms out on like, what's beyond the business when it feels all consuming because it's difficult. And the other part's purpose and like connecting to that and or getting clear on it. And I think Patrick Quinton Smith episode is really good for this in that he talks about nearly quitting a few times and what got him through is just this sense of conviction that the thing he wanted to do with coaching and his experience of coaching as well was something that the world really needed and would add real benefit. And so something's like, there's a thing here for me, right? To think more about what is it that makes this really important to me, which is kind of only I can answer that and no one else. Like everyone can talk about the benefits of coaching because that's the thing that means that we're probably still there when it's really difficult. Because we know what we do is something that we don't really want to miss out on doing more of or the world to miss out on.
Well, that seems like a perfect place to end, I think. Just say it again, Alex. Something about not wanting the world to miss out on it.
Gosh, no, I go. Yeah, it's I suppose like reconnecting to why this really matters to us because we don't want to, I suppose, miss out on doing that, and nor do we want the world to miss out on why it matters to us and why we're doing it and what we're doing as a result of that.
Yeah, so nice, isn't it?
Yeah, and absolutely what we always come back to with the work we're doing here at the Coach's Journey. Well, considering I was very tired, then this is a beautiful place to wrap it up. And I look like I'm not totally inept. We'll see. No, that was really great. Thank you both. And thank you for putting up with my slow cognition from brain to mouth. And definitely let's just get booked in another call so we could do the rest of the things that we touched on at the start. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Hi everybody, Robbie here again, and just a few quick things to share with you before you go on to the rest of your day. Thanks for getting all the way to the end of this episode. I'm imagining that means you think the work we're doing is important and valuable. Well, we think so too. And if you loved this episode, I want to tell you about two other things I think you'll love. First, my free ebook, An Introduction to the Coaching Business Flywheel, which you can get at thecoachesjourney.com. It's my attempt to boil everything I've learned from my years supporting, coaching and interviewing coaches about their businesses into one simple model containing the fundamentals of any sustainable coaching business. The only things you have to do to have a sustainable coaching business and the things that if you don't do them, you can't have a sustainable coaching business. Get it for free at thecoachesjourney.com. And second, you might be interested in the Coach's Journey community. It's my flexible, affordable group coaching program for coaches. You pay between £20 and £100 a month and get access to a certain number of group coaching calls each year, plus some one-to-one time with me if you're a full member, and various other benefits. And of course, you get the chance to be connected to other amazing coaches on their own journeys, and you can join and read testimonials and much more at thecoachesjourney.com/community. Thanks so much to everyone who has supported the Coach's Journey over the years, but in particular, thank you to Alex Whitton, Alan Bedding, Jessica Jem, and Nikki Marsden. Thank you two for listening, and we hope to have you back with us on the Coach's Journey podcast sometime soon.